We and this meeting is being recorded.
I have never heard it do that before.
So we'll start over now it's being recorded. So welcome to this webinar on leadership and management. We have Lisa Sika in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. She is the director of ministry, director of ministry development, for servants. And then we have Jay Adcock. He is the CEO of Global Fitness Enterprise. He's in Houston at the moment. And then we have Caitlin Newsom. She's the director of Chattanooga Sports Ministries in Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then I'm going to be facilitating. I am Wendy Hinman. I am in Carlsbad, California. I am an adventure specialist with North Coast Calvary Chapel. And so I was thinking about this, that when I was in high school, we used to sing this old song that the lines were, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Because that's really where leadership begins with. It begins inside. That's where integrity begins. And it starts with self-leadership, because if we can't lead ourselves, we can't lead anybody else. And when we think of having followers, are we somebody worthy of following? In the movie, Remember the Titans, this guy Bartier is supposed to be the captain of the football team, and he is complaining to one of his followers and said, just about his attitude. And Julius, the follower, looks at him and he says, leadership reflects attitude. And it's just like, ooh, and that's hard for a leader. But leadership is influence, even more than power. So Lisa, I want to ask you, a leader has to have vision and to really see the unseen, to see the emerging future. How do you communicate and clarify that vision to your team and your organization?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. I love this part of leadership, looking at vision and leaders, kind of living in the future. They have that eye. If you've done the leadership training that the sports movement offers, they reference Revelation and the 4 characteristics of a leader: a lion, a man, an eagle, and an ox. And for vision, it's the eagle, with that powerful eye that sees into the future. But the hard part of that sometimes is communicating that. We have this awesome vision of the future because that's what our eyes see, but how do we communicate that to others and bring them into that vision and give them a role in that? And it's, making that vision really clear to others that I think is sometimes difficult for us as we're seeing it in the future. But 2 ways that we can do that: one, have a vision statement, and the other to have a mission statement. The difference in that, is your mission statement really talks about how you're doing what you do. So what you do, who you do it for, the benefit it provides, it's usually something short and concrete. For servants, our mission statement is serving Christ, building relationships, transforming lives, and engaging volunteers. So those are the 4 things that we want to do in our organization. But your mission statement, your personal mission statement even can be, something that you are personally doing and going to do to fulfill that vision and carry people into the future. That's your mission statement. The vision statement is big. It's that big, hairy idea, that big, audacious, hairy idea. For servants, our vision statement is the entire church engaged in serving Christ by serving others. So that's big. And it's trying to break that. The mission statement kind of breaks that vision down into how we're going to actually accomplish that. So that's how we do it at Servants, to try to carry that vision on and share it with others.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Caitlin, what does it look like to create a positive culture within your team so that they're excited to come to work?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. I think there's three things that I can think of kind of around that question. First, I think relationships matter. Number one, that's the first thing, is if people feel like, even if they feel like your mission is more important than your relationship with them, that's not building a good, positive team culture. You want, I think you want your team members to feel like you care about them more than anything else. You're for their greater good. And so that's number one. I think I try to meet with my, individually with my team members throughout the week, and just ask them about how their lives, what's going on in their personal lives, and really just try to communicate and posture myself caring about them as a person. I think that's a big part of creating a positive, healthy team culture. And then just kind of like what Lisa said, but just this idea of remembering the bigger vision and mission. And I think it's easy to get stuck in kind of the day-to-day, like tedious tasks of running an organization. Everyone has to be reminded of, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the bigger vision? So just constantly vision casting with your team. And then third, I think, just like valuing the relationships, making sure to help the team remember the bigger vision. And then third is just fostering an environment of thankfulness, just being thankful for each other, remembering to see kind of like what's going well, what is the Lord doing and providing, and speaking that out loud. So every week in our staff meeting, the very first thing we do is go around and have just like a thankful for time, where we're just say something we're thankful for from that last week. And I think that just that does a really, it's just really easy, but that does a really good job of kind of creating this positive, encouraging environment where everybody wants to be together and enjoys being together. So that's how I would.
Okay, yeah. I think I saw that recently. I visited a Christian surfers get together, and you could tell in that group that that the values had been communicated and the mission statement had been communicated, and everybody there knew they were valued and what the value that they were as a group. So I think that's really good. Jay, how has coaching affected your leadership and management as you've gone into the business world in sports?
Yeah, it's a good question, Wendy. And my mind goes back to, I don't know if this resonates with you guys, but some of the most influential people in my lives have been coaches on the sport field. Like these men have impacted me as a man. And like, this is a legacy that they're leaving on with me. And I think this is very important, even coming out of the nonprofit world into the for-profit world. You've really got two main camps, and I'm painting this with a broad brush, but you'll see the point. It's like you have coaches and you have directors. I think about, I was a catcher all the way through high school and college and baseball. And on the field, I was the director. I called the pitches, they execute the pitches. I call the plays, they execute the plays. Now the coach was more, hey, together, we're going to figure this out. I'm going to do it in the trenches with you. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do it. So it's these two camps. So I think coaching, the approach of coaching and not dictating, though the lines may blur sometimes, there's really kind of three key points that I just jotted down on how we go about this. It's, hey, as coaches, we need to help our people achieve goals. And our goals need to be systematic so that the goals at this level feed into the goals at this level. And it all goes toward what Caitlin and Lisa were talking about, the vision, the mission, the strategic planning objectives, like all of these things, it all funnels together. But we need to say to the people, hey, I'm willing to pull up my bootstraps and get dirty with you and serve you as a servant leader. The second is delegation, but strategic delegation. There's a big difference here of really picking your battles of what needs to be delegated and where you can give ownership to your people versus what really is best to be done by you because you're the best at that piece, or it falls under your job description, or et cetera. And then the third one has 2 points to it. 1A and 1B essentially is praise in public, correct in private. All right, we've probably heard this said, but I want to just go extrapolate a little bit more on correct in private. Is correction needs to be done very specific. In my life, when people have corrected me, it's very vague oftentimes because the emotional response is like, ooh, I'm offended and I want to get defensive instead of, no, this person cares about me, Caitlin's point, that you're valued and I want you to be the best. So very specific correction. So those three things I think are really big pillars that I try to lead our organization, our company by, so that people have buy-in and they act as owners essentially.
Yeah, yeah. So in her leadership book, Brene Brown said, to be clear is to be kind. So when you're giving feedback, you really need to be clear. And Jay, to be clear with you, I was shortstop when all through high school, and I was a director on the field. Just FYI.
That's fair, Wendy. That's fair. Evidently, your catcher wasn't a leader, so
yeah, she's a freshman.
But
so Jay said, when you get down and dirty, and that certainly happens. Caitlin, in the down and dirty, what is the value that you see in conflict in a team setting?
Yeah, huge. I mean, I think when conflict is not there, it kind of implies just maybe like an environment where team member, because nobody is the same. If you have a good team, you have a bunch of different personalities and different strengths and weaknesses, and everybody's kind of, filling a different role. And so with that, you're just naturally going to get different opinions and different, just differences. And so that's going to create conflict. When you don't have conflict, I think that implies that people don't feel comfortable sharing, kind of what they think or their opinion, or speaking up, being honest, and that's a bigger problem, or that's an actual problem. Conflict, on the other hand, I think, really allows for you to have real conversation. That's what you want. That's when you get somewhere, and it doesn't have to be a negative kind of conflict. I think differences and figuring things out, working together is really important. But if you just avoid that, you're not really actually going to get somewhere. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard. I think, different personalities enjoy conflict more than others. But I think as a leader, you have to create an environment where people feel like they have the freedom to speak up and not just not stay quiet, stay silent. So
yeah. The team has to have a safe place. I always think of conflict in downhill skiing. When you're learning downhill skiing and you hit a mogul field, a lot of times people try to avoid the moguls and they try to go around them. And if you think about a trough and your skis and what that does, it's just going to make a bigger mess. But when you learn how to ride moguls, when you're skiing, you go up on the top. You go on the top of the problem, and then that pivots all the directional change. And so I really think that conflict is where transformation is born from. Jay, I think I'm just anticipating conflict that you might have. So you've started a for-profit company, but the value of the company is to make an impact as disciples for Christ. Tell us about that. Any conflict there? Struggles?
Yeah. I mean, the big one we can all probably see, the elephant in the room, is money, right? It's like dum dum dum. The big bad wolf is back in town, and it's money, right? It doesn't have to be that way, though, and I truly believe that money's not the issue. Even scripturally, it's not the issue. It's needed. Look all through the Old Testament. Rebuilding of the city, it took money. Okay, took Nehemiah asking for that. It wasn't the issue. It was the love of money. And my personal testimony is one where God brought me out of this idol of love of money. And it took me radically in the other direction. And now it's interesting that he's bringing me back around and saying, hey, now you've been trained. Now I've corrected you. I've pruned you in a way that you're focused on me and not the dollar or the money. I think about change, especially going from a nonprofit to a for-profit, keeping the same mission but doing it in a way that is acceptable to where we want to go strategically as a company. I think about change. You know, the equation for change and the way I see it, and I heard it said like this, and I did some tweaking to this equation, but change is first, there has to be dissatisfaction, right? In order to get the change, I've got to be dissatisfied. So I think about in health and fitness, somebody comes to me and says, I want to lose 50 pounds. The first question is why? Because I want to make sure they understand, hey, they're not happy where they are. They're dissatisfied. You add dissatisfaction, and there has to be vision. So the ladies talked about this so well. I've got to see where I want to go. Tell me a time where you were in the best shape of your life. How heavy were you then? Okay, 50 pounds lighter. All right, they see where they're going. Now you take this and you multiply that times what's the first action step we can make? What's the thing we can do? And that equation has to be greater than the resistance you're going to receive from change, because we hate change. It's not easy. If the resistance is bigger than the vision, the dissatisfaction, and the first steps, we won't change. It'll be a dog chasing his tail around and around and around again. And so change is hard, and we need to know that going into it. But the resistance needs to be smaller than my desire and where I want to go. So whether that's money, for-profit, not-for-profit, conflict, anything, policies and procedures in our organizations, communicating that from day one and doing these things that Caitlin and Lindsay are saying, vision casting, et cetera, it's key. The communication is key.
Yes. Communication always so huge. I want to let everybody know we're going to have a time of questions and answers after we ask Lisa this question. So Jay is talking about change and resistance and change bringing conflict. So Lisa, how do you manage change and the conflict it can bring up in your organization?
Yeah, this is good. When I was thinking about this, about talking about conflict, the first thing I thought about was telling people to be kind. And then I'm looking at this group and I'm like, am I really going to bring up being kind to this group of leaders, you know, on this call? But yeah, so Caitlin said it earlier when she said some people get more excited about conflict. Yeah, excited. No, some people do get more excited about conflict, and some people are more resistant to it. On our executive team at Servants, we're split about half and half for the people that would run away from it as soon as they see it rearing its little ugly head, or the people that just address it head on. What I try to remind people is that resolution is what God intended for all of creation. So there can be a positive outcome to this. Don't avoid it. Like, and the one quote that I wrote down that I have in one of my notebooks is run to the pain. So address it head on right away, but be kind. You know, it's kindness is such a simple thing, but there's so much scripture that really talks about just being kind to one another, and you can remember that when you're dealing with conflict. So those would be my 2 suggestions: head on, run to the pain, and be kind to each other. And just a second thought on that: make sure that that's your team culture. You know, like Southwest Airlines, you guys know, if you sit next to the emergency exits, they make you agree that if something happens, you've got to be willing to help people and open that door. And you can have the same thing with your team. Hey guys, if something happens, our intention is resolution. So we're going to agree with that first off, and that's going to be how we approach conflict.
I like that idea with kindness. Out here in California, we have 2 healthy grocery stores, Trader Joe's and Sprouts. And Trader Joe's makes it a management thing that everybody in the store has to be kind, and they have to chat people up. They have to just, how's your day? What's going on? And you really see that spill out into the parking lot. And then you go to Sprouts where they don't have that. It's not that they're unkind. It's just not a team value. And you also see that in the lines and the parking lot. It's amazing how leadership is influence and it can spread out.
Wendy, I love that example, and you saying that made me think of the Chick-fil-A model, right? Like it's just chicken.
Yeah.
But what's the difference? I love that when you drive through or you order, to a person, the response is my pleasure. Like, notice this. Now, this is a policy that Chick-fil-A has, that when an employee is thanked for serving the customer, they respond with, not you're welcome, not no problem, it's my pleasure. Words are important, and they choose those words because it impacts the customer, and that's the differentiating factor.
Yeah. Well, so I want to open it up to questions. We've talked about vision and mission and relationship and kindness and conflict. Do you have any questions for our panel? Caitlin, I have a question for you. You were talking about conflict. Think about a time where your team was in conflict and there was failure. What did you learn from that, from the failure?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we have experienced a good bit of failure, and I think, you know, yeah, what is failure? You know, I think it goes back to that kind of relational center. So if we're good with each other, and we're like Lisa saying, kind and respecting the other for who they are and caring about who they are, whatever failure we're going through as an organization, or you know, we try something and it doesn't work, it's secondary, you know. And I think growing, you know, when you have that like really those deep bonds, tying, you know, you together with that other person, that failure doesn't have yeah, it just has less of a power and a hold that, you know, will allow for kind of that negative conflict or negative energy. And yeah, so I think, you know, we have tried things and failed over and over and over again. But there's this sense of we're in this together, we're figuring it out together. And then not like blame shifting and pointing fingers, but really kind of owning it all as a team.
Yeah. You know, the scripture, the whole Bible starts with creation, fall, redemption, and then consummation or resolution or culmination. And every book of the Bible has that. It has the beginning, it has the conflict, it has the redemption, and then the celebration of whatever it is at the end, except maybe Ecclesiastes. But all the books flow like that. So I think we can fail forward when we fail. And most people, I know for my team, we look back at our failures as a step forward, and nobody would go back and change the failure because of what we've gained going forward. Lisa, I have a question for you. If anybody else has a question, just interrupt me and jump right in. But Lisa, how often do you remind your team of your mission statement, and how do you do it? Because if you make a plaque and put it on the wall, that's considered the worst way to remind your team of a mission statement.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, it's so funny that you brought this up because we've struggled with this. I mean, we really have, and we are really good at coming up with cool, like we called them rallying cries for a little bit. So we have our vision, we have our mission. And then for some reason, we felt the need to like come up with these extra little cool slogans or rallying cries. And we do it for a week. We're like, embrace the change, like right after when things started to lift a little bit through quarantine, our new rallying cry was to embrace the change. And I think we used it once in like a Facebook promotion or something. The key, and what we've realized is that we don't even keep up with it. The leadership doesn't even keep up with it because we're getting away from the basics. So now as an executive team, we're reminding each other and holding each other accountable to carrying out this vision, even with our staff, even with other people on our team, and reminding each other and holding each other in that small group accountable for it. So we've started meeting twice a week instead of once a week. The second time we meet for a tactical meeting, but then a strategic meeting. But that second time we meet is really, so how have we moved the vision forward? What are we doing this week, next week to move the vision forward? And just holding each other accountable for that.
Yeah, that's good. The accountability factor is good. Jonathan has a question here. So it's Jonathan is asking, how do you remind yourself and keep yourself accountable to your own personal mission? That's a good question.
So the tattoos the mission statement tattoos that we make all of our employees have are the wrong way to do it, huh? I've learned a lot. No, I'm teasing.
Here in San Diego, there's a lot of Charger tattoos.
Right. That's good. I think if I can just tag on to what Lisa was saying, and maybe it answers the question at hand here, is we do it through storytelling. I see this is the way Jesus did it. The mission was this, and John the Baptist did it one way, right? Repent. The Messiah is coming. And Jesus came on the stage, and we just see him telling stories oftentimes. And it was very contextualized stories. And so that's the way we do it, is success stories or even stories of failure. We tie that back into, hey, this is one step closer to the mission at hand. And you guys are a part of making this thing happen. And look at the result. Well, praise God that this happened. And so that's one way that we do it. And personally, it's convicting for me. And Lisa's exactly right. If it doesn't start at the top, and I use that term loosely because maybe our structures are not, they're more linear. But if leaders don't communicate this, and what's on our heart is what comes out of our mouth typically. Guess what? Come August, I'll be talking about college football because I love college football and I'll watch it a lot, right? Well, if I'm not spending time in the mission, and if I say this book is the best book on health and fitness, this is what needs to come out of my mouth. And if it's not, and I don't have those accountability people like Lisa's talking about, I need to know that because it's a blind spot. So for me, that's how it works in our company.
Mm-hmm. On your guys' teams, are you very aware of the roles that each team member plays? And does everybody stay in their lane pretty well?
Nobody else from my team's on this call, right? No, let me just check. I mean, no. So I think we're aware of the roles, but I think it's really easy to jump over into other people's lanes. And I think that's where that kindness comes into, of just being able to say, yeah, I really want your input on that, but hold on a minute here. And just being able to have those discussions. A lot of the things we do together, it's a lot of joint collaboration. But I think, if you have a team that's open, transparent, and very easy to communicate, you're already knowing how to deal with conflict. You don't have to worry so much about those bumps. You deal with them when they're a little ouch before they turn into a big boo-boo.
Any other questions?
I've got one. So if you guys are the leader of your team and you're trying to collaborate and you're trying to come to a conclusion of moving forward on whatever it may be, and you hear everyone's input, but you feel in your heart that your idea or your decision is the one that needs to play out, how do you tell that to the team without making them feel insignificant or unheard?
I'll respond quickly because this is a great question, and it's a common thing for those in leadership. It's like, and we don't want to manipulate people to get what we want, right? And so it's a culture thing. It's a co-collaborating to come up with a solution. I read an author once said that there's a great disease in the world, and it's on all continents. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor or you're homeless. It crosses all boundaries of cultures and ethnicity, and it's called know-it-allism. And there's two types. There's passive and there's aggressive. And I was like, ooh, boy, that hit me in the gut a little bit, but it was good because it's right. Now, that doesn't negate the fact that you might have a great idea. So for me, questions are king. Questions are king. I want to understand more your idea. Even if there's the little doubt in my mind that that's not the way forward. I just want to keep digging. Okay. How did you come to that conclusion? Or what makes you think these things? So very open-ended type questions, and just probe. Then at the end of the day, if I'm responsible for it, I need to be fine that I did my due diligence to exhaust that idea. And I've come to the prayerful determination that we're going to take the piece of that so they don't feel left out. They don't feel like you're not important. No, that's a great idea. We're going to use that, but we're going to just pivot and change direction slightly. But man, thank you for steering us down the path. So they're not negated. They're not put down. And then you have this culture of safe place, as Wendy put it. We say it's a safe place for crazy ideas and no condemnation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question that, I think it's really hard, and I think it's situational. But I do think it's really important that at the end of the day, somebody has to make a decision. And you can't go in 30 different ways all at once. Somebody has to be like, okay, this is the direction we're going to go. And yeah, like Jay was saying, I think really asking questions and really trying to understand kind of where everybody's at. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to make the decision, and it's okay if it's you, if it's the leader. And I think as long as, I think there has to be a culture of like understanding, okay, if there's like, if we're in a situation where there's a question, the leader of this team is going to have to make the kind of the last call. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think that can be a really healthy thing. If the leader is constantly like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go this way. No, this way. That's a problem. I think there has to be a little bit of balance, like Jay is saying. And sometimes it's okay to go down a direction that you don't really think is going to work out. But to like honor that person and really try to like grow with them in their process and their understanding. I think it's okay to go down that direction. But it's situational. It can't just be, it's got to be both, if that makes sense. So I think really good question, and yeah, really difficult, but really important part of leadership.
Yeah, and I think it's understanding your team. Like parents, we're the leaders. And I have 2 daughters, and one of the daughters, she just wanted to be heard. And so as long as she was heard, she would follow whatever decision would be made. The other daughter wanted to know why. She wanted to know the why of our thinking. And then the same thing. She may not agree with the why, but as long as she understood it, that we had a why, she was willing to go that way. Jonathan has a question here, hypothetical. He apparently has to train somebody in one day to be on his team. How would you approach that day? Like, what are the absolute essentials you want someone to understand before serving alongside you? So you have one day to train.
So I think the top for us are definitely the vision and the mission and our values, like our core values. I know that's really simple, but really important to get that established right up front.
I'll borrow from Bill Bridges. If you know this author, he's kind of a thought leader on transition and change, or a number of different topics. But he says there's 4 things that we need to do, and I think they apply, Jonathan, in this scenario. Is one, just like Wendy said, communicate the why. So we need to communicate purpose. What's the purpose? Because guess what? When things get hard, we got to go back to purpose, the why behind the what. So the first P is purpose. Second P is picture. We've talked about this, vision casting. This is, we can taste, touch, feel, smell, hear it. Where are we going? Third is the plan. So this is the how. It answers the how question. How do we get there? And it's broad strategy, not details at this stage in this scenario, Jonathan. So it's not, these are your job responsibilities. These are the strategic goals that we as a company are going toward, or we as an organization are going toward. I think about the story of Moses. When he led the people of Israel out of Egypt into the desert, the purpose was, hey, you're slaves and we need to get you out of that. That's why we're like, this is the why. We're getting out of Dodge here, okay? The picture was what? The land of milk and honey. The plan was, though interesting and really kind of radical, we're going to follow what by night and what by day, right? Here's the plan. By night, this fire. By day, this cloud. There's the plan. And then the 4th P is play your role. So almost that operating in your lanes, right? This is your role in this whole thing. So in the purpose and the picture and the plan, this is your role. This is where we get down to, the specifics of how you fit into the puzzle. So that's the approach I think I would take if I had one day to train somebody, is I would do those 4 Ps. And at the end of the day, if I communicated that, it's a win.
Nice. Well, I think we are drawing to a close unless anybody else has any other questions. I want to thank our panelists. I know for me, This has been really good. I'm about to go into a really very audacious season, like Lisa was talking about. We have over 1,300 kids coming for kids games, and that's a cut. We've cut that down from our usual because of COVID. And our mission statement, or our encouragement in our team, has been more bricks and less straw. And then we had to change it because we realized, like Caitlin was saying, we weren't being positive. You know, so it's really good to be reminded of our personal mission statements and our value statements as a team, not just to produce bricks, but to make disciples. I have a chat here that says, I think Jonathan wanted to say something. All eyes on Jonathan.
No, my internet just cut out in between the third and fourth piece. I missed one. I got purpose, picture.
Oh, okay, yeah. I meant to.
Purpose, picture, plan, and then, yeah, I've adopted this one to play your role.
Mm-hmm.
So operating in your lane,
Great, thanks.
really getting down to the specifics.
Yeah. And play as you work.
If it's not fun, why do it? I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's my personal motto.
Yeah.
If it's not fun, man, it's not going to sustain itself.
Yeah. So I just want to remind everybody that this is all expanded on the learning community that we have in the online forum. And then also, I think Rance wants to announce something that I think is really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. And thanks to our panelists. Really, there's great stuff today. And you did a great job facilitating, Wendy. So thanks to all you guys. But, you know, just kind of an offshoot of our broader topic today. You know, we as leaders, we have great vision. We're trying to figure out how to manage our teams. But one of the subsets of this that I think is also really important is how do we get stuff done? I think we all struggle with time, with capacity, balancing relationships and tasks, work life, family life, personal life, you know, all of these things. And so we're actually going to do another webinar, kind of a bonus webinar 2 weeks from now on June 18th at the same time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to really dive into that topic of time management and productivity, especially in this digital age where there's so much information available to us and coming at us all the time. And so how do we sift through that and get clarity and really be effective in our work? And so the webinar, I'm going to share a little of my personal journey and give an overview of some of the mindset shifts and some really practical tools. And then we're also on the same day going to launch an online course in the learning community that Wendy's talking about. There'll be 4 sessions. It'll really be a deeper dive to help you engage with that content and then come out of that with some real takeaways that I really hope will help all of us as we're wrestling with this beast of time management, just to be more effective in what God's called us to do. And so I want to invite you guys, join us in 2 weeks for the webinar. And then if you're not in that learning community, there's a lot of really valuable stuff there. So I hope you'll take a look at that. There's a online form. You just fill out that form and we'll get you in there. You can find that on our website. Mikey, maybe you can put that in the chat as well. So that's it. Thanks, guys.
All right. So this opened up a lot of questions. Like we said, the learning community has even more answers. I need Rance's bonus webinar last week, but I'm going to wait. And so I just want to pray for us. May the Lord bless us and keep us. May we stay on vision. May we stay in our values, in all of our ministries, and make disciples who make disciples in our personal worlds through sport and play and fitness. The Lord bless you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Indeed. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week.